So the iRacing GT3s have been updated. It's no secret, I've never been a massive fan of the iRacing GT3s. But I've made that pretty clear as well on previous streams and videos. I've not hidden the fact that I wasn't a massive fan of them. However, iRacing a few months back asked if I wanted to be part of their development team to develop these new GT3s. You know, when you get an invite like that, I'm not going to say no. Of course, it sounds like a great opportunity to get to know the iRacing devs a bit better. Given how much I use iRacing, it made a lot of sense. And yeah, this GT3 update's been in the works for 6 months. So you can only imagine the amount of work overall that's gone into making these new cars. And of course, the update drops on June the 10th. And in exchange for my help and hours over the previous few months, I get first dibs on making a juicy little YouTube video that, of course, you lot are watching right now. So let's see if all the hard work's paid off. How good are the new iRacing GT3s? Let's have a look. Now, iRacing gave me both the McLaren 720S GT3 Evo and the BMW M4 GT3 Evo test, as those are the two GT3s I've driven in real life, and therefore my feedback is going to naturally be more accurate. And as part of this sort of program and helping them develop the cars and making them better, I did provide quite a lot of real-world data and telemetry, purely for the McLaren and BMW, just to help them get the cars closer to realism in all areas, basically. iRacing does exist to basically get everything as realistic as possible. That's its purpose. And yeah, of course, I did all of my development at Spa and Silverstone, so probably the two real-life tracks I know the best, again, to get accurate feedback. But so then, this update, so they've completely overhauled the dry and wet tyres for the GT3 cars. They've also completely revamped the aerodynamics as well. So yeah, the tyres are now using, effectively, iRacing's most up-to-date physics models. So when you think about that, the two biggest areas that affect the way a GT3 car behaves, so the tyres and the aero, they've been completely reworked. So naturally, you would expect these cars to feel quite a lot different, and they do feel a lot different. But yeah, there is a full list of updates, including every single thing that's in this update, not just the GT3 updates. There's new tracks and stuff as well, so I'll link that in the comments below so you can go and check that out. But in this video, I really am just going to cut through the weeds and touch on the main updates for the GT3 cars specifically. So if we focus on purely the tyres for a minute, the main thing for me is the fact that they've improved the way the tyres handle temperature. So the tyres don't spike in temperature as much as they used to. The tyres are also now more resilient. If you get a slide-on, so they don't just give up. You can actually still control the car, if you see what I mean, even if you do get a slide. And yeah, this was one of my pet peeves with the GT3s and iRacing before, was the fact that, you know, during a race, you're going to get a moment or a bit of oversteer at some point, especially if you're driving at a decent level near the limit of the car. No one goes through a race sim without getting a moment or, you know, maybe just stepping slightly over the limit of grip. And when you would do that with the GT3s and iRacing, you'd have an oversteer moment, you'd overheat the tyres, and then that would be your race over, basically. You just would not be able to get them back, and you'd just be really slow. You'd likely have a spin in the next couple of corners. It wasn't very intuitive. Yeah, if I pull over a minute, right, and if I just get ready to do a burnout, okay? So we all know what would happen if you'd have any wheel spin or oversteer in these GT3s before, right? So I'm going to turn the TC down, and let's do a burnout. Right, and I'm going to leave the TC on 1. Let's see if I can keep it on the road whilst driving fairly quickly. So you can see the tyres are clearly on fire, but I'm still driving fairly committed. But it feels how it should. The tyres have recovered, despite the fact I've just had a massive burnout with them. And the tyres are still quite cold as well. I can still drive the thing. Whereas previously, if I did that, you can see like, it is a bit twitchy, but in real life, if I did a burnout, it would be a little bit sketchy and twitchy on the rear. So I feel like they've captured that quite nicely. They've found a nice balance. Whereas before, if I did a burnout, I'm just going to loop it in the next corner if I drive anywhere near the limit. So I think that's a good example of showing you guys how much it's changed. Really quick lap time there, a 12 minutes 25 second lap round Spa. Absolutely flying. And yeah, it's also when you do have a massive slide, as I was talking about earlier, the resilience of the tyre, you can save it. Whereas before, if you did get a moment, it was just like 9 times out of 10 you're looping it round. So now, I mean, I can try and get a bit of a moment through Lecombe here. See if I can generate a bit of oversteer. Just go in a bit hot and then maybe get the rear going. So you can see, like, before you just would not be able to do that. If I was purposefully, with low TC, getting the rear to kick out, it would just loop it. No matter how good your car control is, you would just be at the mercy of the old tyre model, whereas now it feels like you can drive it a bit more. Another big change, so the peak of the tyre in the GT3 has been pushed back later into the stint. So previously it would be lap 1 or 2 that would be the quickest laps, whereas now it seems to be more like lap 4, lap 5, depending on the track you're on and the temps, of course. So it's a later peak, and that does change things quite a lot. You know, a driver's approach to qualifying, a driver's approach to a race stint, now the peak of the tyres later, it should change the racing a bit. I'm not 100% sure what that will look like, but I'm quite intrigued to see what the GT3 races on iRacing will be like with that big change. So if I just head back to the pits a minute, another change they've made is they have made the starting temp of the tyres a bit cooler. So they've tried to base it off the tyre temperatures. If the tyres were left out in the sun, just sat there baking, what temps would they be? And they've judged this at around 35 degrees Celsius. You can see on the dash, it says 35 degrees on all the tyres. So when you leave the pits in iRacing, your tyres will now be at 35 degrees, whereas previously, I think they were a little bit hotter, like maybe 45 degrees. So it might be slightly more challenging on the outlap now. But if I was driving a GT3 with no tyre warmers, it would be sketchy. So that, you know, they have captured that. In my real-life GT3 experience, I've only ever used tyre warmers, so in that instance, you can just leave the pits and just get straight on it. You have so much grip, and I think if you've watched my driver's eye videos, you would see that. I leave the pits and just get straight on it. So you can't do that here because iRacing have opted to go down the non-tyre warmer route, which is fair enough. Some championships don't use them. I have used them in GT World Challenge and British GT, but in WEC, for example, they don't use them. So if we talk about setups for a minute, I think it's safe to say none of the setups that worked or were quick before are going to work now, just given how different the cars are mechanically and aerodynamically as well. So yeah, the setup shops over the next few days and weeks are going to be they're going to be very busy. Whoa! Wow, that was a massive moment in Blanchimont there. On cold tyres, I wasn't really thinking, approaching it flat out. Bit of a weird oversteer moment actually with the slide and how I caught that, but maybe that's just car control, you know. Maybe I'll give myself a bit of credit for that. But yeah, that was a good example how sketchy it can be on the outlap. You do have to bring these tyres up to temp quite progressively. The BOP for the opening season then of the updates to the GT3s won't include any changes to the mass or the engine power levels. It's only the downforce levels and drag levels that have been adjusted, so just worth noting when you're thinking about BOP. But yeah, overall these cars feel much better, so much better in a lot of different areas, and yeah, it's good to see. It's worth saying as well, I did some wet weather testing on these tyres, more so with the BMW at Silverstone, and I had no complaints, to be honest. I think the iRacing wet weather physics are the best around, and they have been since they dropped last year. But this tyre update, as I just run wide there on cold tyres again, this tyre update has basically just complemented the way the GT3s feel in the wet. So I think you guys are going to enjoy the way these cars do feel when it rains. One thing I am wary of, and only time will tell on this point, is the driving style required to be fast in the GT3s on iRacing. So you see another example there, even on cold tyres, that you can save it, whereas before you just couldn't. But yes, the driving style required to be fast. What does that look like when all the GT3 aliens get their hands on these and spend days and weeks and grind away to figure out what little inputs work, what inputs don't work. Because before, the way the aliens would drive the GT3s in iRacing, it just wasn't that realistic. So if I put some meat on those bones then, so what would you see? You'd see progressive braking. So instead of hitting the brake like this, you would see them under heavy braking, you'd see them come on the brakes like this. Which, a bit strange, you'd see insanely smooth steering, throttle and brake inputs. So they would never go beyond the slip angle of the front or rear tyres, so they'd always drive within the confines of those slip angles. And it was just very extreme. It was extremely smooth, and it just looked like everyone was underdriving the cars at all times, basically. Like, if you watched one of the quickest iRacing GT3 laps, it would just look really slow because the person was underdriving, but that's how you got the most out of the car. Basically, every area of the driving was catered around keeping the tyre temps as low as possible. And, you know, if you did put any heat into the tyres, you would just have less grip. So that's why initially I've struggled with GT3s and iRacing, because I have quite, I suppose, an aggressive driving style compared to that, and it just did not suit me. So over time I got slightly better at it. I never fully mastered it because I didn't put the time into it, to be honest. And the other thing as well, I didn't want to, because it wasn't enjoyable to drive like that. And yeah, if you watch any real life factory GT3 driver, they're driving smooth, of course, and they're smooth on the pedals, they're smooth with the steering, their inputs, but it's not that extreme. I think with this new tyre model update and the aero update and everything's been revamped, I think it's brought it closer to real life for sure. It's not as extreme as it was anymore, which is a really good step. But yeah, I think we'll soon see in the coming days and weeks, when people start to unlock the time in these cars, what are they really like at the 0.1%? You know, are there any weird quirks to get the most out of these cars? We'll soon see. I'll be very interested to keep on top of that. Just going off feeling alone, the GT3s in iRacing are going to be in a much better place. I can confidently say that. And yeah, the scary thing is despite the flaws before with the GT3s, like, and everything I've just mentioned, these cars were so popular. Like, the numbers in just daily races and stuff was always extremely high. In special events, GT3s were always the most popular class. And that's with all the flaws. So I think now they're so much better. The numbers are going to be insane. If everyone enjoys them as much as I do, it's going to be insanely popular. It's worth saying as well, there were a few areas of improvement that I'd given feedback on to the iRacing devs that didn't get addressed in the end just because of time, and they just didn't have the time to implement those changes within their scheduling, which is fair enough because, you know, these changes, they're not a day's work. You know, they take a long time. An example of one of the changes I've recommended they do is making sure the brake temps influence the tyre temps a lot more like they do in real life. So there were loads of little things like that I said would be good to have in iRacing, and I think they've given me confidence that they will get to that. It will just take a little bit of time. And to be honest, talking about the devs specifically for a minute, I think they were really good to work with and really transparent, really, you know, good at communicating and getting me involved, and they seem just like relentless. Like, they're just always updating this sim and this platform. So as good as these are now, and they're way better than before, I think they will continue to improve the GT3s, and there's still some points to address. So yeah, I think that's quite exciting just to predict where these could end up. It could be very, very good. And yeah, it's definitely worth saying, actually, a big thank you to the iRacing devs just for getting me involved, because it's been a really fun project to work on. And I wasn't really that close with iRacing before. I played the sim, but I didn't have any contact with the devs. But yeah, it's been really good. So a big thank you to those guys. Anyways, let's take this for a proper lap and drive it towards the limit just to see how it behaves, just to show you guys how it behaves, really. And let's see what lap time we can achieve as well. So I'm running the ABS effect on my Simicube active pedals because I do think having those enabled in the GT3s and iRacing has always been a good thing, and I've kept it the same with this update, and it does feel good. So my brake trace might look a little bit bumpy as I fight against the ABS. into T1. A little bit deep. You can see the brake trace there, really working hard against that ABS. Shifting when my dash lights go blue into a rouge. You can see the car wiggling around a little bit. I'm on a medium downforce setup, as you'd expect at Spa, so fairly quick on the straights, but also a decent amount of downforce for Sector 2. Right, let's get into the corners then. So, Sector 2. Demolishing the curbs. So you can see the tyres. It's moving around, but it's nice. I can deal with it. I can drive it. Feels like the car's alive compared to before. Into No Name. Into Pouon then. See how it behaves through Pouon. A little bit of understeer, but then I can feel it, and it did feel like that in real life actually, just wiggling around on the rear. So, you know, it's a GT3 car. I've still got to be fairly smooth with the inputs, but to me it feels like I don't have to be as smooth as before. Yeah, again, Stabilo 2, you can feel the rear just wiggling. The tyres are starting to give up, but they don't just fall off a cliff. And surely now the tyres are up to 10. Blanc should want to be easy flat. Easy flat. Yeah. There we go. Into the final bus stop then. Okay, approaching the line then. What's the time going to be? 2:16.9. Okay, so I'm on medium fuel. New tyres, of course, but no tyre warmers. That was my second lap, I think, of the stint, so it wouldn't have been the peak of the tyre. I think the peak of the tyre will be in 1 or 2 laps' time. So 2:16.9 seems about right. You know, if you take into account the fact that this isn't the resurfaced version of Spa, and in real life it got resurfaced and it got, like last year at 24 Hours of Spa, it was really quick. Yeah, I'd say it's hard to gauge, but 2:16.9 seems like it's in the right ballpark. So there we have it. The new GT3 update on iRacing is a positive one. I'm looking forward to seeing the general consensus on this, so let me know your thoughts. Once you've tried it on June the 10th, which is when it drops, come back to this video. Let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are. And yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what people think. So yeah, as always, thank you for watching the video. Give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I will catch you all on the next one. See you later.